On today's show, Michael Porter Jr., Egor Demin, and Nic Claxton lead the Nets to a thrilling upset victory in Boston. I'll offer my top takeaways from Brooklyn's top performance of the season right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And on today's episode, I'm going to be recapping the Nets' 113-105 win over the Celtics at TD Garden on Friday night. And this was, bar none, the Nets' best performance of the season. They outplayed this Celtics squad for the vast majority of the game. And this has been a theme over the Nets' last 4 games. They're 2-2, and they are playing a much improved brand of basketball of late. And I'll talk about what that could mean, tank implications, all that when I close out the show. But right now, just want to focus on a win, because even though this is a tanking season, this is a game where the Nets played a really complete game. For the first time this season, really played a complimentary basketball game against a decent to formidable opponent. And it really was fun to watch. I mean, they got contributions across the board in this one. But I'm going to have to start with Michael Porter Jr., who played an absolute stellar game tonight and continues to play at an elite level. But a little background on this game: the Nets were up marginally in the beginning. It was a little back and forth, but then Jaylen Brown picked up his 5th foul with about 5 or 6 minutes left in the third quarter, which was huge. And then from that point on, the Nets closed the third quarter on a 21-9 run to take a 15-point lead entering the fourth quarter. And then the Celtics, they start to come roaring back in the beginning of the fourth. Jaylen Brown comes back in the game. They get it even closer, and it seems like this is going to be a repeat of the Nets' last game against the Celtics, where they were leading, they were playing well, and then they completely collapsed and went ice cold in the fourth quarter. And then Michael Porter Jr. happened. I cannot remember the last time I saw a Nets player flip the switch and take over a game like MPJ did in this one. MPJ in the fourth quarter of this one, he checked in with 7 or 8 minutes left. And from that point on, 16 points on 7 of 8 shooting in the fourth quarter, and was just ice cold, dagger after dagger after dagger into the hearts of this Celtics team trying to make a comeback. I mean, these were not easy shots. Like, we all know that MPJ is a tough shot maker, but in the fourth quarter of this one, the Celtics were playing good defense, and Michael Porter Jr. was getting wherever he wanted. He was scoring in a variety of ways. Like, it wasn't just the tough threes. There was some of that, but he was getting into the mid-range, drawing fouls, finishing. He was bullying his way on drives to the rim and opening it up and just scoring at the cup. And he said after the game, Megan Triplett, friend of the pod and Yes Network sideline reporter, asked him what was the difference in this one. And he said he didn't like how they went out in the fourth quarter of that last loss, the way they collapsed. And he said, we're not going out sad in this one. That was the thought process. And he just took over. And I actually heard the broadcast. I think Jordy Fernandez, right before MPJ checked in the fourth quarter, he said, just pretend the Celtics, pretend they're all WNBA players. And MPJ, he took care of business from that point on. Now, obviously, I'm kidding. But for the game, MPJ, you look at this one, his numbers, just continues to play elite basketball. 33 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 13 of 21 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. And over the last 9 games, MPJ is at 27 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists on 48, 36, 87 shooting splits. And I know that the Nets have lost the vast majority of those games, but they look more competitive as of late. And I can say that Michael Porter Jr. is playing at an all-star level right now. He's not going to get an all-star nod. I mean, maybe if he continued playing like this, he'd be in the conversation, but most likely not, because the Nets are just not a competitive team on a lot of nights. But he is playing at an all-star level, and he is, he is just taking over. And the way that he did in this game, it really was a beauty to watch, the things that he did offensively and the efficiency and the various ways that he did that. But during that fourth quarter run, I also want to shout out Egor Demin, who I'm going to do a whole segment on, my second segment, talking about him. He played the best game of his season and the best game of his Nets career thus far tonight. But the Celtics, were making that fourth quarter run, and they cut the lead to 2 with 5 minutes remaining. And Egor had a really good first half. He had been quiet for the whole second half. Jordy Fernandez finally rolled with him. And after the Celtics cut that lead to 2 with 5 minutes remaining, Egor Demin comes down the court. He sees some daylight in front of him with a defender. He pulls up and he drains a huge three from the left wing. Biggest shot of the game. It took it from 2 to 5, and from that point on, Michael Porter Jr. just took over from there. But Egor Demin showing some stones in this one and hitting a really big shot. And we've seen this from Egor. Like, he's had his second half struggles. Jordi Fernandez has benched him in numerous games in the second half. But we saw it in that Cavs game. We saw another shot in the Magic game, and we're seeing it in this one. Egor is seeming like he's got a little bit of a proclivity for hitting some big shots in these fourth quarters. And that is nice to see from a 19-year-old, a rookie. But it wasn't just MPJ. It wasn't just Egor. The Nets really got contributions across the board from the whole team. I'm going to talk about more guys in depth. But, in addition to MPJ and Egor, you got Nic Claxton, first triple-double of his career. I'm going to talk about that at length. Noah Clowney continues to look much better offensively and did show some really nice defensive flashes on the low man rotations of this one. Drake Powell, he contributed. Tyrese Martin had some big buckets. It was just an all-around performance, and the defense for the Nets looks much improved. And if you talk about what is the difference over these last 4 games in allowing the Nets to compete, it is the defensive improvement, because the Nets offense has actually been better than expected for most of the year. That doesn't mean it's good. It just hasn't been like the worst in the league as we expected it to with all these rookie ball handlers. It's looked like bad instead of atrocious. But their defense was really the biggest inhibitor to competing. And you look at these last 4 games, the Nets are in the middle of the pack in offensive and defensive ratings. So that defensive rating has gone way up. I think the Nets over the last 4 games, they're at around a 114 defensive rating. And then tonight they hold the Celtics to 105 points in this one. Over the first 11 games before these last 4, the Nets had a 126 defensive rating. So it's just continued to trend in the right direction. I mean, you look at, since Cam Thomas went out of the lineup, it got a little bit better. And then over these last 4 games, it's gotten a lot better. And it's looked like this defense is going to give them the ability to compete on a lot of nights. And I've said on those nights where this defense gives them the ability to compete, the question is going to be, can they close out a game? Do they have a closer? You look at that Magic loss. They did not have a closer. They missed their final 5 shots in the last 2 minutes. And they let Orlando close on an 11-0 run. You look at the last loss against the Celtics. They were up by 1 with 9 minutes remaining. They did not have a closer. They ended up shooting abysmal from the field in the fourth quarter with like 2 assists and 7 turnovers. And you look in this one, they had the closer, and that was the difference. And it was a huge shot from Egor Demin, and it was also play after play after play, bucket after bucket after bucket from Michael Porter Jr., a player who's just looking like an absolute steal for this Nets team. I did an episode on that trade, recapping it with Lucas Kaplan. Go check that out from a couple of days ago. But I said I viewed that trade as a win because of the 2032 first-round pick the Nets got from the Nuggets, which was unprotected. Best asset I thought the Nets were going to get in a CJ trade. But I said this trade could turn into a massive win if MBJ continues to play at a high level. And the 2 games that he's played since I said that have been stellar, and he's just continued to look like, honestly, like one of the most efficient offensive players in the league while posting career-high usage. So great stuff with him. But I want to get at length into Egor Demin, who played the best game of his career in this one, and the arrow just continues to point up on his trend line and development since becoming a starter for this Nets team. So what did I like from him? I'll get into that when I continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, let's talk about something every business owner knows too well. Missed calls. When a customer tries to reach you and you can't get through, that's money slipping away. Quo, spelled Q-U-O, is the smarter way to run your business communications so you never miss an opportunity. Guys, Quo is the #1 business phone system built for 2025, not 1995. It's simple, modern, and designed to help you communicate faster, look more professional, and stay connected wherever you're working. Guys, I love that Quo works right from an app on your phone or computer. No extra devices, no clunky landlines. Your whole team can share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox, which means customers get help faster. And the built-in AI agent is a game changer. It logs your calls, writes summaries, and even sets up follow-ups automatically. So try Quo free at quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. And yes, you can even keep your existing number. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and then you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want. So DoorDash has you covered for late-night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double OT fuel-ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 a day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. Coming back from the break, continuing today's Locked On Nets episode, reacting to Brooklyn's upset win over the Celtics at TD Garden. And I got to hit on Egor Demin and show Egor some love because it's been an up and down start to the season for Egor. He's obviously had a lot of critics from the moment that the Nets took him with that number 8 pick. He was labeled biggest reach in the draft, all that stuff. A lot of Nets fans have been really concerned, and there have been rightful concerns. But I've been overall very pleased and impressed. And honestly, Egor is ahead of where I thought he was going to be in terms of what he's putting on the floor, especially since these last, whatever it is, 7 or 8 games since he's entered the starting lineup. He looks good. There's some ugly moments, but you're seeing the flashes and you're seeing the vision. And you look at this one, Egor in the first half of this one, he was playing pretty elite basketball. He was at 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 of 8 from the field, 0 turnovers in the first half of this one. And then he was relatively quiet in the second half, but he did hit that massive 3, which I think is the biggest shot of the game in this one after the Celtics had cut it to 2 with 5 minutes remaining. So Egor finishes with 12.6 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 of 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. He was a +9 for the night. And the biggest thing in this game, aside from that clutch shot, which was huge, was Egor doing it in a little bit of a different way, because we know that it has been the three-point shooting has been the main positive, which is a huge positive given the questions and concerns that you had about him after he shot 27% at BYU. That had been a strength. But the lack of aggressiveness, the lack of downhill driving force that he had been playing with, really just the passivity in that part of his game in terms of not that often being willing to go downhill. And when he got downhill, looking a little timid around the basket, that was the biggest concern, in addition to the ball handling concerns that we've seen him struggle with earlier this year. And he really, in this game, I think in terms of the ball handling concerns and in terms of his, passivity or timidness going to the basket, it looked completely different in this one. You look in the first half of this one, Egor had 3 drives to the rim that I think were his most physical drives that we've seen yet. And he scored on all 3 of them. And that's just something, Egor going to the basket, initiating some contact, and finishing on 3 drives in one half. We weren't seeing that over 3 or 4, game samples. It's continued to trend in the right direction with him going to the basket. But in terms of getting downhill, not shying away from contact, going into guys, we saw that on multiple plays in this one in the first half. And that was really encouraging to see. I mean, we saw one play where he got by Jordan Walsh, who's no slouch of a defender. He finished over him. We saw another one where he got Anthony Simons on his hip, and instead of fading or whatever, he went into him and initiated a little contact, and he missed it, but then got back his offensive rebound and laid it in. And then we saw another one where he, shot fake to close out, drove left. Really, it's, elevated towards the basket instead of fading, and finished up towards the rim. So all of that, extremely positive stuff. In addition to the 3-point shooting, he hit 2 really nice threes in this one off the bounce. And then the playmaking. I mean, 5 assists, 1 turnover in this one. We saw he had a really nasty assist to Drake Powell, who also showed some good flashes in this one, where Egor drove left off the pick and roll, drove baseline, had 3 defenders collapse to him, and then he was kind of falling out of bounds, and he whipped a pass around 3 defenders to Drake Powell, and Drake hit a 3 on the right wing. But those are the passes that Egor is able to make because he has that vision, obviously, which is elite, but he also has this 6'9" frame, 6'10" wingspan that allows him to make the passes from different angles and see the passes. And you see that in this one. So Egor, the overall ball handling ability, the lack of turnovers, the continued 3-point shooting, the playmaking, and the driving ability, we saw all of that in this one. And Egor, I'm just I see the vision. I'm really pleased with how he's playing thus far, especially since coming into the starting lineup. And we said with him, it wasn't too hard at the draft, even though everybody was very critical of the pick, or most people were very critical of the pick. I said, if you go watch my reaction pod from that draft with Lucas Kaplan, I said, you don't have to squint too hard to see the vision. I mean, 6'9" guy, he can handle the ball adequately. The Nets seemed to think that he was going to be a high-level three-point shooter. He's the best passer in the draft. And then the length and versatility that he could have defensively, even though it's a work in progress. Like, you're seeing flashes of all that stuff. Like, he's shooting the ball at a very high level for a rookie. And then the ball handling ability, the driving ability, the playmaking, you're seeing all of that trend in the right direction. And you're seeing the flashes that you want to see from a 19-year-old rookie that give you confidence that the trend line is going up. And not all like development is linear. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but you're seeing the tools. And the thing I said about all of these Nets rookies entering this season, the thing that I was going to be looking for were, do their strengths play at the NBA level? And you're seeing that with Egor. You're seeing the three-point shooting. You're seeing flashes of driving ability, and you're seeing the court mapping and the playmaking and him making passes with his size and with his vision that a lot of other guys just can't make. So I come away from this really encouraged by Egor, as I have been, but this performance was his best performance of the season, and it's one that if I were a Nets fan, I would be very excited about the direction and the trend line and how this stuff is looking with Egor Demin. So really great stuff from Egor. But we also got Nic Claxton turning in an elite performance in this one, first triple-double of his career. Noah Clowney also showed some really good stuff, and the Nets overall just competing as of late, and despite them being 3-12, and them winning this game, there's going to be fans, I know, who are concerned and want to talk about the tank equation and what that looks like. So get into all that when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Guys, you can use Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. You can pick your favorite players like Pat Mahomes or Steph Curry to see how your predictions play out. And the new Stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, reacting to a Brooklyn upset win at TD Garden in Boston. And I got to hit on Nic Claxton, who turned in one of the best all-around performances of his career. First triple-double of his career. Claxton this one, he had 18 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists, 7 of 13 shooting, and he was a game-high plus 18 in this one. And Nic Claxton, like we've heard, obviously, I've spoken at length about how well he's been playing early this season, but this really was a two-way performance, a complementary performance. We've seen McClax. The offense has been at a career best level, and it continues to be. In this one, as I said, 18 points, 12 assists, only had 3 turnovers for a big man. He just continues to operate this Jordi Fernandez offense at an extremely high level in terms of his efficiency as a driver. We saw some really nice drives in this one, a few where he crossed up Neemias Queta and Luka Garza and finished at the cup, a few and ones, a lot of push shots around the rim. He's shooting the best he has since that 2022-23 breakout campaign at the rim and also in the short mid-range from like 4 to 14 feet. Both of those numbers are really high. And then the playmaking just continues to be at an elite level. I mean, for a center, like Nick is up there with Nikola Jokic, with some of these other big men in terms of the playmaking efficiency. Like, he's not at Jokic's level, obviously, but he's up there in terms of his assist to turnover ratio, his assist percentage, his lack of turnovers, the way that he's finding some of his teammates and putting them in advantageous positions. He's doing that at a really high level. And we know that the demand has been more on Nick in this offense as a hub big man. The demand as a self-creator, the demand as a passer, all of those things, because the Nets lack really high-level shot creation at the top of this roster in their backcourt play. So Nick has had to pick up the slack, and he's done it in a huge way on the offensive end. And then in this one, the defense was also really high level, and that has trended in the right direction since those first 4 or 5 games. Nick didn't have a block in his first 4 or 5 games. And then since then, I think he has blocks in his last 11 games straight. And in this one, he played at a very high level, playing at the level on ball screens, recovering, doing some of those things, snagging defensive rebounds. Just all around, it was a really high level performance from Nic Claxton, a player who like I just talked about with MPJ and Egor Demin, the arrow is pointing up, and the Nets are getting high-level contributions from multiple guys in these recent games, and that's leading them to be able to compete with some of these teams and, compete with the Boston team in this one. That sure is without Jason Tatum and whatever, but still like a good team, a championship team 2 years ago. So Nic Claxton, a player, there's going to continue to be trade conversation, or there's going to be more trade conversation as we get towards the deadline. I'm not saying the Nets should trade him. I'm saying there's going to be interest in him around the league based off of the way he's playing, and the Nets are going to be put to a decision where they have to decide, are we going to sell high on him and sell high on this improvement, or do we believe in this as a long-term trend line, and do we feel that he is going to be our best option at center moving forward? So the better Nic Claxton plays, the more the buzz is going to generate in those conversations, and the more the Nets are going to be put to a position where they're going to face a difficult decision. What they do with that decision is going to be one of the top storylines that we move forward with this season. The last guy I want to touch on is Noah Clowney, who I think continues to look really encouraging in terms of what he's doing on the offensive end of the floor, and then also showed some defensive flashes in this one. But Noah had 19 points on 7 of 15 shooting, and he didn't even shoot well from 3 in this one. What was he? Noah was 3 of 11 from 3 in this one. So he didn't shoot well, but the driving ability is what is most intriguing to me, because I've said this, since Noah has started to play better early this season, the driving ability has been the thing that is sticking out the most, because during Noah's first 2 seasons, we knew that he could shoot the ball at a decent level, or an adequate level, at least from 3. But he really couldn't do anything else. He could not put the ball on the floor. He could not get to the basket. He could not finish around the basket. He shot like 40% on 2s as a 6'9" big man last season. And this year, he is making serious strides as a driver of the basketball, in addition to shooting better from 3 in recent games. But the driving ability, we talked about entering the offseason, we talked about at training camp, the bulk that Noah Clowney put in and the body transformation that he underwent this offseason, with him starting to look like he's having a little bit of a grown man body now in his 3rd season at 21 years old. And it's showing on the games. Like, it's one thing to put on that weight and look better and have your shirtless pics or whatever on Instagram. But when it's actually, implemented and impactful during the games, that's when it gets exciting. And we're seeing that with Noah Clowney. We're seeing him when he drives to the basket. I've said that Noah isn't a guy who has like these crafty moves. He doesn't have the crafty crossovers or dribble moves or euros or step throughs, like none of that. His biggest asset going to the basket is going to be his force, his downhill force, and his size, and his ability to generate space using discards and things along those lines. And we're seeing Noah do it. Like, going to the basket, he's being physical. Like, guys, he gets advantages because guys close out very hard to him and they respect his 3-point shot. And with that, he's going to be able to get downhill. And now, last year, where Noah was getting kind of caught in the paint and he looked really indecisive, now we're seeing him initiate contact, play off 2 feet, generate space, and finish. And that was the biggest thing that we talked about with Noah Clowney, or I talked about with Noah Clowney and Jordi Fernandez entering the season, was his ability to play off 2 feet. And when you look at it, like, go watch the highlights of Noah Clowney drives this season. You're going to see he's getting downhill. He's generating an advantage, whether off just a blow by or attacking a closeout. And then when he gets into the paint, he's putting shoulders into people. He's either getting to 2 feet, or he's on his 1-2. He's initiating contact and he's generating space, and that's allowing him to finish around the rim. And in addition to that, we're seeing some nice touch on like some running layups, some running like half hook shots, just overall really positive stuff from Noah Clowney. And then we also saw defensively in this one, he made some big plays. Like, we're seeing a little bit more aggressiveness on the low man rotations. And that's huge, because when the Nets are playing at the level on these high ball screens with their centers, which means that the big man, when the opposing big man sets the screen, the Nets centers are playing even with him at the level, which is supposed to cut off the driving lane. And with that, you get a lot of slips, you get a lot of pocket passes to the rolling big man going downhill, and then he's at an advantage. And the last line of defense is what we call the low man, the guy who's down low rotating over. And Noah Clowney is in that position very often, and he had been in a lot of recent games just very timid, just like a little late on rotations, or not physical or forceful or decisive on those rotations. And tonight we saw one where he rotated over and Neemias Queta was coming down the lane and tried to throw one down, and Noah Clowney came over and punched it and blocked it out of there, which was just an unbelievable play. One of the best blocks of his career. And then we saw the same thing on a few plays later, and Mosqueda dunked over him, but I don't care. And Jordan Fernandez, I can assure you, does not care either. It's the willingness, it's the timing on the rotation, it's also the aggressiveness going uphill and trying to meet someone. And we saw a lot of plays like that from Noah Clowney, and we have of late, and that's why the Nets are surrendering much fewer points in the paint, and their defense has looked much better as of late. So all of that stuff, really good from Noah Clowney. Also, Drake Powell, I want to just give him a quick shout out because he looked good in this game. He had 9 points. He made some good plays defensively. We saw one play where he got a steal. He jumped the passing lane, which is you're just seeing him do a lot. You're seeing his length get in passing lanes, give people trouble that way. Also, obviously, on the ball, his length, he just moves, and he has, 6'5", 7 foot wingspan. We know the athleticism he has, but just the way that he moves, the ground he can cover, the way he can stop on a dime, the way his hips are oily, the way he can flip his hips, he just covers so much ground. He just looks different out there defensively. And we saw one play today where he jumped the passing lane. He went down the court. He dunked over Anthony Simons, which is really nice to see, to that athletic play, an athletic, forceful play, something we don't always see from the Nets as of late. And also, he hit some threes. He made some other plays. So just good stuff from Drake Powell. And overall, this Nets team, they look more competitive lately. And I did an episode with Lucas Kaplan after the Nets beat the Wizards, and I talked about what I was calling tank hysteria over the fan base. And it's so crazy, not so crazy, but you kind of feel like it was somewhat ridiculous that fans were getting that upset or worked up over the Nets being 2-11 or whatever they were and having 2 wins. And the reason that fans were getting worked up is because there's so many despicable teams at the bottom of the race this year. And the Nets now, with this win, they dropped to 5th place in the tank race. And I said it on that podcast. While I thought it was premature, while I thought it's too early to be getting worked up over this stuff, I said I understood the fans' concerns about that stuff. I understood how starved this fan base is for a top guy, a face of the franchise top guy that you hopefully can get in this coming draft. And with the way the Nets really botched the tank last year, I understood some PTSD and some concerns from the fans. And still, the Nets are 3-12. They're on pace for whatever you want to call it, 17 or 18 wins. So you can't really get mad at them for botching the tank or doing anything like that, because they've really executed this tank nearly as well as you can in terms of the offseason moves they've made. But yet, in pure Nets fashion, they still got to make it interesting, or the NBA, the basketball world and universe still has to make it interesting, because the Nets are now 5th in the tank standings. They're behind the Kings, the Pelicans, the Pacers, and the Wizards. And of those teams, the Pelicans are really bad, but I think that they'll probably be able to finish ahead of the Nets because they don't own their draft pick. So if they can't finish ahead of the Nets, that's just despicable. They're going to be doing everything they can to try to win for the entire season, which is not going to be the case with other teams. The Kings, there's been some rumblings about them potentially, being involved in a fire sale and pivoting towards a rebuild. But for now, even though they're struggling, they're a team that should perceivably finish ahead of the Nets. The Pacers and the Wizards, those teams are concerns, as are the Kings and Pelicans, despite them not having incentive to lose right now. They're still in the conversation. Then you have teams like the Dallas Mavericks, who could go into a tank, and tear it down. So, I'm not going to panic. I don't think Nets fans should panic. They're still in a good position tank-wise, because I think they are going to have a very strong chance to finish in the top 3. But overall, if you're talking about the Nets getting towards the top of these tank standings, they're playing much better basketball of late. They're buying in. The defense looks much better. And Jordan Fernandez is once again getting these guys to play really hard. And Michael Porter Jr., Nic Claxton are playing at a very high level right now. And we're seeing some other guys show flashes. So as the year progresses, I said the Nets are probably going to have to put their foot on the gas a little bit earlier than expected in terms of the tank, because of how bad the bottom of the NBA standings are. And that could mean trading some pieces away. That could mean, when you talk about trade conversations with Nic Claxton or Michael Porter Jr., that could factor in when you talk about the way that they handle some injuries or whatever stuff. We see how teams who are truly urgent about tanking operate. We didn't see the Nets do that last season. They weren't one of the teams that was willing to do that for most of the year. They did it with their offseason moves, but they've yet to really do it early in the season. But yet they are just 3-12. The bottom of the standings are just so bad. But we'll see whether the bottom of the standings being that bad does lead the Nets to press their foot on this tank gas pedal, which is, because this is the last year that they have their first round pick. So how they handle that is going to be a main storyline moving forward. But overall, if you're a Nets fan, I'm not going to say not going to tell people how to fan, but this was an exciting win. And this was a win where you saw a lot of positive things that are going to benefit the Nets long-term up and down the roster, whether you talk about the rookies playing well, whether you talk about MPJ and Nic Claxton as potential pieces moving forward or trade pieces, whether you talk about Noah Clowney's improvement, just all around positive stuff. But that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed this bonus episode of Locked On Nets. Had to get one in after that third win of the season. But if you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, take a second, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. But then it's got another game on Sunday and then a nice, exciting slate coming up in the coming week of games. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back on Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.